Plymouth straight back up to speed, Sheffield Wednesday being the big winners. There's been a big swing and Ipswich have been on the wrong end of it. The big League One promotion head-to-head between Ipswich and Plymouth ended in stalemate. A stoppage time equaliser from Barley Mumba sent Argyle home with a 1-1 draw. Meanwhile, Sheffield Wednesday won their fourth game in a row, defeating Wycombe. But what does this potentially pivotal weekend in League One mean for the ever-riveting automatic promotion race? Well, in the short term, it's hard to argue against Sheffield Wednesday being the big winners of this big weekend. Wednesday fans knew that if they beat Wycombe, they would either get closer to Plymouth or extend the gap over Ipswich. Time will tell what the best scenario would have been for Sheffield Wednesday, but they'll be more than happy with another win and gaining 2 points on both of their direct rivals. And what about Plymouth and Ipswich? Well, on fine margins are promotions decided, and had Barley Mumba not grabbed that late goal, we'd all be talking about a worst case scenario weekend for Plymouth. But he did grab that goal, and that changes everything. Argyle's head-to-head games with Ipswich are now done for the season, and they've taken 4 points. An Ipswich win would have closed the gap in the table up to 4 points with a game in hand. As things transpired, the gap remains at 7 points, and that late stoppage time 3-point swing could potentially prove a big blow to the Tractor Boys. If we're talking about the best and worst case scenario binary, Ipswich fans would have outlined Sheffield Wednesday losing and a victory over Plymouth as the best case scenario. We're far from that, but it also could have been worse for Ipswich, given they didn't lose to Plymouth and allow the Pilgrims to put in a 10-point advantage in the league table. Maybe the best and worst case as a binary isn't helpful here, but surely on the happiness scale, Darren Moore and Stephen Schumacher will be ranking a lot higher than Kieran McKenna after the weekend. So where does this leave our can't take my eyes off it promotion race? Well, a good starting point would be to go back to the video I made a month ago on December the 15th. We were just before the halfway point of the season then. Ipswich were top and Plymouth hadn't won in 4. My take then was that it would be tight, but that Plymouth were closest to capacity and Sheffield Wednesday would slide past them to join Ipswich. Since I made that video though, there's been a big swing and Ipswich have been on the wrong end of it. In the background, Bolton have taken 6 and Derby 7 points out of Ipswich, and in that top 3 race, Sheffield Wednesday have taken 7 and Plymouth a massive 8 points out of Ipswich. Does that change things? Of course it does. We've had the top 3 tracking over 90 points for the longest time now, and if standards stay that high, then it could literally be an indifferent 4 or 5 game run that makes all the difference. That's where we are right now. Simply put, Plymouth straight back up to speed after a short blip. Wednesday maintaining a strong pace and probably the best long-term momentum. Ipswich currently experiencing the biggest slowdown of any of the 3 teams in the race throughout this season. Squads we know can be tweaked in January, and both Plymouth and Ipswich have already moved fairly decisively in the transfer market. Sheffield Wednesday will likely respond very soon. Plymouth reacted very proactively to losing Morgan Whittaker back to Swansea by taking Ben Waine, Callum Wright, Tyreek Wright, Saxon Early, all on permanence, with Jay Matete arriving on loan. Ipswich appear to have addressed potential weaknesses in their attacking roster by bringing in Nathan Broadhead on a permanent and George Hurst in on loan, with Massimo Luongo, an experienced head, adding some depth and hopefully knowledge in the midfield. Sheffield Wednesday are currently a bit behind the other 2. Alex Myton has gone back to Nottingham Forest. That frees up a squad space. Mark McGuinness is apparently going back to Cardiff, but that's a bit up and down, up in the air at the moment. Either way, I'd be amazed if we don't see something positive inward in the next 10 days transfer-wise. What the hell happens next? Well, we have a mighty big week scheduled at the start of February when Sheffield Wednesday host Plymouth and then travel to Ipswich in back-to-back games. Wednesday also head off to improving Charlton before March, but the rest of their run looks okay. Plymouth, well, they have that big visit to Sheffield Wednesday. They also head to Peterborough before March. Their away form is slow at the moment, but they don't half make up for it with the home record. Ipswich, well, they've got that Sheffield Wednesday challenge and probably a bit of PTSD after the Plymouth game and a tricky trip to Bristol Rovers. But Ipswich do play the current entire bottom 5 over the course of their next 8 games. So hard to call, isn't it? My take, for what it's worth, right now, it looks like Plymouth's ruthlessness and intensity and Sheffield Wednesday's solidity and consistency are working better than Ipswich's attempts to win by controlling games. If standards stay relatively similar, which I think they may well do, that does, as of now, make Ipswich outsiders as things stand. Kieran McKenna and Ipswich need a big run now, something like 8 wins in 10 or 11 to really put that hammer down. But I would say in the transfer market, they've added strength in depth up top in terms of match winners that seems to get them closer to where Plymouth and Wednesday already seem to be. Those back-to-back games for Wednesday against Plymouth and Ipswich will be pivotal. Plymouth's home form is looking more important than ever, and Wednesday are coping well without Bannon, but will definitely need him back and firing for the run-in. I'm just not seeing a big drop-off from any of the 3 sides up there. I still think it's realistic that all 3 are over 90 points. I'm sure you've already checked out, but the final day of the season, Ipswich away at Fleetwood, Plymouth away at Port Vale. Sheffield Wednesday are at home, but to Derby. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. Right now, how do you see this automatic promotion race playing out? Look, it's very, very complex, very hard to get your head around. Lots and lots of moving parts. So, if you're in, there's a long way to go, or there'll be lots of twists and turns yet mode, and you're not ready to discuss it, that's fine, but don't try and shut the rest of us down. Let's get the debate going below the video. If you are a Derby or a Bolton fan, listen very carefully. It's an 11-point gap up to the top 2 right now. So you're not in the conversation right this second. I will happily broaden the scope of my analysis if and when things get tangibly closer. That is absolutely and categorically not me writing off Derby or Bolton. So if you're thinking about commenting, telling me don't write off Derby or Bolton, you've essentially told me not to do something that I haven't done. Now, I can't necessarily please you Bolton fans right now, but if you want to hear about Derby and their chances of joining the automatic race, then you are in luck. They were the topic of my deep dive back on Friday. So click up here to see my take on Paul Warne's impact up at Pride Park